I think the definition of a leader is really changing. And to me, I make a distinction between two types of leaders. One is an unconscious leader, which is the type of leader that you so often see in the media landscape in countries all over the world. An unconscious leader is somebody that isn't aware over why he's doing what he's doing and isn't introspective and isn't able to really take a look at him or herself and say, you know what? Yeah, I did this or I said this because I was scared in that moment. And I think we are at a time in our history where humanity is fed up. Humanity is no longer into buying the BS lies from so-called leaders where you're just being lied to again and again and again and again, whether it's left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. It's just like such a cliche. And so now people, they will no longer respect you. And so now there's a new type of leader that is being born, and that is a conscious leader. A conscious leader is someone who is in tune with their thoughts and feelings. That is someone that is operating from a place of love, from a place of service, from a place of peace, right? With an intention to create lasting solutions, not just quick fixes. A conscious leader is somebody who is continuously investing in uncovering their own shadow side because he or she knows that it has a tremendous effect on the way that he or she leads.
This is the Play Your Position podcast, where we huddle up, call the plays, and inspire you to run your ball into the end zone. Are you ready to score more game-winning touchdowns in your life, business, and career? Then listen up, because it's game time, baby. Now, here's your host, Mary Lou Kaiser.
Hello, Team PYP. Mary Lou Kaiser here. Welcome to today's episode of the Play Your Position podcast. I'm excited because it is game day today here at PYP, which means if you've been listening for a while, you know I have got an amazing guest who is suited up and ready to take the field and bring us into his world of high performance and mindset and how to actually apply some of the principles that we're seeing more and more of today. But the question is, how do we actually go from where we are to where we want to go next? And he is going to enlighten us about that, along with a whole lot of other stuff. His name is Mario Lanzarotti. Mario, are you ready for kickoff?
I'm ready for kickoff, Mary Lou. I'm excited.
Yes, I am too. So team, here's some things that I know about Mario. First of all, he's coming to us today from Cape Town, South Africa, which I think is super cool. He is a high performance coach, TEDx speaker with nearly 900,000 views, and he is a conscious leader. Mario travels the world helping entrepreneurs make more money in half the time through building an unstoppable mindset. From CEOs to Olympians and mission-driven entrepreneurs, Mario helps high achievers all across the world gain the mental clarity and focus necessary through his master classes on conscious leadership and next level mindsets. And one thing that I was talking with Mario about in the pre-chat is he truly is an international guy. He's lived in the States, here in New York. He currently, like I said, lives in Cape Town, South Africa. His roots are in Italy and also Germany. And I love having the international perspective on leadership, Mario. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. That was a stellar introduction. I'm really excited to meet the guy that you were talking about.
Oh, I'm just honored that you're here with us today. So let's set the stage for listeners and have you share with us your story, Mario, of when you got the call to leadership. How old were you? What was going on in your life? Just bring us into that point in time and set the stage for this journey that you're on.
Yes, that's a beautiful question. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited. And to dive right in, I think the call to leadership began at quite an early age in my life. I The way that I grew up, German Italian, came with a lot of love. If you know Italian culture, you know that there's a specific kind of relationship between the son and the mother. And my mother has nurtured me with a lot of love. And if you also know Italian families, you know there's a lot of drama and chaos that sometimes plays out. Because Italians seem to be a little bit on the louder side, especially the Southern Italians, which is where I come from. And so there's always been a lot going on in our household. And I remember there was a time where my mother went through her own challenges. My mother is one of the biggest role models in my life, and she's worked 3 jobs when I was young. My parents came from lower middle class and worked themselves up. My father had a restaurant for 30 years. And I remember there was always a lot going on in my life. And I often saw my mother deal with the emotional challenges of raising a family and working 3 jobs, and naturally as a human being struggling with that. And so my sister came into that mix as well, and also had her own journey. And so I often found myself being the space holder, being the one that would calm down family members, that would take care of my mother. I remember my mother, she told me this not too long ago. She was like, I remember when I was working so hard and you were very young and you were just in like 1st or 2nd grade, you would make me coffee and you would wake me up after like a 30-minute nap that I was able to have and make sure that I would get to work on time. And so I would take up a leadership role at a very young age, and I would sort of become the peacemaker in the family. And I think that really resonated with me at a young age. And throughout my life, then I've always been in leadership positions, whether it was in sports teams, whether it was at school. Later on, I became I went on the path of becoming a pilot in Germany, and being a pilot requires significant leadership skills. I mean, you're piloting an aircraft with more than 300 people in it, so there's a great deal of responsibility. And I think for me, I've always naturally gravitated towards taking responsibility as sort of the main job as the leader. And if you look at, I'm not much into star signs and horoscopes. I'm aware of it, but I'm a double Leo. And so it says a lot about me.
It sure does.
There's a shadow side to that as well, which is the manipulative, controlling characteristics that I definitely have within me. And over the years, I've sort of learned to hone more of them, embrace them, and then bring them into my being as qualities. I would say that's where my leadership journey really kicked off.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for being so detailed and setting the stage within your family, which I found after asking this question now for many years, that is a bedrock. Whether the family was loving the way yours was, or the family was dysfunctional, sometimes that can, be a catalyst to a young person recognizing, oh, I want things to be different. So I think it's neat that you lead from a place of love, and it's clear from just the little bit that I know about you at this point that you bring so much of that positive, loving energy to the work you do as a high performance coach, as somebody who, as you told me in the pre-chat, this is really your calling. But I didn't know you had been a pilot. Obviously, you didn't stick with that. Did you do that before you started your company, the one you were telling me about?
Yeah, that was sort of the major step into the world of exploring your own career, and it was straight out of high school because I wanted to find something essentially where I could prove my worth. I wanted to have something where everybody would look at me and say, okay, Mario is a made man, he did it. And I did it from a place of feeling my parents did so much for me. They sacrificed so much for me that I wanted to make them proud. And they were already proud. They already told me that. But in my own unconscious mind, I always told myself it's not enough. And that's a driver for a lot of high performing people in life. This constant nagging belief in the back of their mind that says it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. And the downside of that is you never know when to stop. You never know when to take a break. You never know when to go away from giving and move into receiving. And so that led me down a path of severe depression, heavy burnout, chronic debilitating back pain. Ultimately, I contemplated suicide for about 2 weeks, and I really hit rock bottom during that pilot career. And that was the time when I took inventory and realized this is not the kind of life that I want to live. And interestingly enough, the two people that really helped me catapult my way out of this were Les Brown and Tony Robbins, because I discovered them on YouTube. And I was so blown away by what they were sharing, their stories of their comeback stories, the mindset shifts. And I was like, this is incredible. And so I started applying these principles to myself, and then entered a greater degree of freedom. I was able to move through the self-doubt. I was able to be clear again and to make the decisions that would change my life. And the decision that I made was to no longer live my life according to the expectations of what I think will give me a life of respect, and go for what I truly, genuinely believe will give me a life of fulfillment. And that's what I did. And it led me to the man that I am today. And, money is great, but if I had to choose fulfillment or money, I would always go for fulfillment, because, my life can end tomorrow. And I'd rather die a happy and fulfilled life than a miserable and rich life. But, if you listen longer to this interview, you'll see there's a strategy on how to get both.
Yes. Well, you're leading us right into that question. There's a couple of things, the bridge I want to build here between what you just said and where you're going to take us. The first piece is that you were driven internally to find something else. And you went seeking and you found it on YouTube, which is a tool that we have at our disposal now. The availability to people like Tony Robbins, Les Brown, and others who are in that space is, when you really stop and think about it, pretty remarkable. It's on our phone. You can just open your phone, poke the app, and there is Tony doing his magic, right? Talking about these things. I know from what I read about you, you've participated in one of his signature programs, Unleash the Power Within, which is a phenomenal program. You've done you've invested in yourself, Mario. You knew something wasn't working. And I think it's interesting that you were having back pain, because the body is one of our greatest communicators, right? When things aren't working in our bodies, it's usually a sign that something's not working at an emotional level, at a spiritual level, at a psychological level, because we bury things in our bodies. So let's have you walk us across this bridge between, okay, so I'm a person listening to this, and my life is not what I want it to be. Maybe some things are good, but I have other dreams. What is the secret, if there is one? How do people move from being on the outside of that fulfillment that you speak of and actually being in it and experiencing it every single day?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. Thank you for asking that. And I think it's a tremendously important question that not enough people ask. And, to make it a little bit more simple, and we can have a very long conversation about this, there are two anchor points. And both of those anchor points require a great degree of clarity. The two anchor points are, where am I and where do I want to be? Many people will have a lot of difficulty answer those questions. And what I would first do is I would start with, where am I? Where am I truly? And that means you need to do an honest check-in with yourself. You need to ask yourself, where I am in life, am I happy? Am I really, truly happy? And a lot of people will not even answer that question in a thorough, honest way. because they have this idea that they should be happy. And they have a decent life. They earn money. They're in a relationship. They're relatively healthy. By today's standards, the word healthy has been, cannibalized. It's not
sure
really
has.
health, what people talk about health. But let's just say you sort of have what the average person has in America, which compared to the rest of the world is considered extraordinary, like not even fathomable for most people. And you really need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I happy with the way that things are? And if the answer is no, then ask yourself, what about the way my life is not making me happy? And then you want to take inventory. You want to go through the different parts of your life. Your weight, your body. Are you happy with the way your body looks? If you're not happy with it, okay, good. Then take inventory. What about your relationship? Are you spending enough quality time with your partner? Or is your partner sort of, it's there. We've been together for 10 years and it's, sort of working out. And I'd much rather be with my partner than alone. So but are you watching porn as a man or even as a woman on a regular basis? Are you doing that? Does your partner know about it? High chances that your partner doesn't know about it. So you're carrying that guilt and that shame in the back of your mind. And every time you're with your partner, there's a part of you that's screaming out loud and is scared that their partner is going to find out, right? So your relationship, check in on your relationship. What about spirituality or religion? I don't care about the language, right? God, life, spirit, Allah, Buddha, it doesn't matter. If you have something you believe in, what's your relationship with that? And most people will say, oh, that's a good relationship. But most people rely on, and I'm going to use the term God, when something is wrong. So when they look at their bank account and suddenly they're not making enough money to pay the bills, or when the business growth slows down, then they turn to God. Oh, please help me, right? That I would describe as a very scarce relationship, because it's a super transactional one. It's like, I need something, okay, tune into it. It's like, but there's so much more to that. So to make a long story short, check in with yourself where you are and take honest inventory. And that will require you to step outside of your environment where you're not constantly distracted and you slow down. I would recommend do this in a weekend. Drive away somewhere where you're by yourself and take inventory. Then part 2 is get clear on where you want to go. Now, a lot of people, when they come to me and I ask them, what do you want? They will say this, I don't really know. I just don't want to be stressed all the time. I don't want to be worrying about money. I don't want to be dealing with my employees and these annoying clients. I don't know what I want. So they'll tell me all the things that they don't know, and they tell me that they don't know what they want. Then I play a game, and we can play that game together. Every one who's listening right now, pick an area where you're not sure what you want and how you want to move forward. Any area that works, right? Totally fine. So once you got it, we're going to play the game that's called Let's Pretend. And in that game, we are going to pretend that we do know the answer for your question, what do I want? I understand. You don't know. Get it. Not a problem. We're just playing a game, right? So bear with me. So if you did know what you wanted, what would you say? Take a moment. Boom. 9 times out of 10, what's going to happen is people will give me the answer in 3 seconds. Oh, well, if I did know what I want, what I really wanted is a thriving relationship. I want to make 40K per month and I want to work only, 20 hours per week. I want to spend half the year living in Mexico and half the year living in the US. And I want this, and that was great. So now what does that tell you, Mary Lou? It tells you that people are afraid to own their true desires.
Yes.
Why? Because if they own it, now there's a responsibility attached to it. And what people try to avoid the most in the world is responsibility. We all love to play the victim because it feels so much easier. It's like, I don't really know what I want. If only I knew. No, my friend, you do know what you want. You're afraid to say it out loud. So now we have 2 anchor points. Where I am and where I want to be. And once you have those 2, the 3rd step is to understand what prevents me to move from where I am to where I want to be. And that's where the limiting beliefs come up, the self-sabotaging mechanism, the fact that you try to do everything by yourself, that you're always rushing, that you're never making time for yourself, right? All of these things. But if you just start there, you have an action plan and you have a strategy in front of you, and it will take you quantum leaps forward.
Yes. Wow. What a great exercise, team. I hope that you go back and do this again. Bookmark where Mario just started that, because it's so powerful. And thank you for being honest about the kinds of answers you hear over and over again. We are so quick to say what we don't want, and reversing that to say what we do want. It's almost like people don't have the vocabulary. They don't even know how to describe what they want. And even what you did describe, I want to make 40K a month and live half the year in Mexico. I mean, even that's pretty vague.
Sure.
And I know for the illustration of I think the exercise is amazing. I'm just saying that to emphasize the point that you're really getting at is the lack of skill present in the majority of people for clearly identifying what it is they truly want.
Yeah.
And part of my mission here at this of this podcast since day one is that I believe in the power of story. And story can go two ways. The stories that we tell ourselves are often conditioned and created by a belief system that, to your point, is often very limited. It's limited by generational trauma. It's limited by culture. It can be limited by zip code if you allow it to. And that's where people like you are so important, Mario, because you are the catalyst to helping people recognize, wow, why is it that I don't have what I really want? Why is it that I'm not happy, or I don't feel fulfilled in my relationship or in my work or even in my business? Because I'm sure, because you work with a lot of entrepreneurs, there are entrepreneurs you meet who are burned out on their business. That love affair they had perhaps in the beginning has long since disappeared. That honeymoon phase. And now it's a grind. Now it's, I have employees and I have problems. And coming back to that R word, responsibility, So what can you, reprogramming belief systems takes a lot of time outside of the exercise you just took us through, which again is such a great place to start. Let's talk about relationships, because that's a big one for a lot of folks. How do you have a fulfilling relationship when you do have to work, whether you're an employee or you're running a business? And you've run a business, Mario, you're running one now. What are some things people can start thinking about differently so that that person perhaps they've been with, like you said, for 10 years or 20 years or even 3 years, whatever it may be, or the person they have yet to attract, right? Let's talk about that as well.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Great question and great topic. And I like to turn it around, because this is a very classical, typical kind of approach that, whoever fabricated it, but there's the idea of Disney, Hollywood, that this idea of having a partner who completes you. And just think about what that means by saying, or even these phrases that I used to say that as well. Oh, my better half. Where's your better half, Mario? Oh, she's over there, right? And I would sort of laugh and feel good about saying that. But what I realized is every time we're doing that, we are externalizing responsibility. And what I mean by that is if you're saying my other half, you are always reliant on your other half being and operating in a certain way for you then to have permission to feel the way you want to feel. Because if the other half isn't there, you're lonely. If the other half isn't doing what makes you happy, guess what? You can't be happy. So I think it all starts with the realization that you are complete by yourself, that nobody can give you anything that you cannot give to yourself. Just like when people say, when my partner does that, that just triggers me so much, and I get so frustrated. And I was like, Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite teachers, he once said, if you squeeze an orange, what you get is orange juice. Obvious, right? Because that's what's within. If you squeeze a lemon, you get lemon juice, right? Obvious. But if I squeeze Mario, what do I get? Do I get anger? Do I get frustration? Do I get joy? What do I get? I get whatever is inside of Mario. So we need to take back our ownership over the way we feel. And so if you want a fulfilling relationship in life, you got to first look at the relationship you have with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a loving relationship with yourself, you will not be able, it will be impossible for you to have loving, truly loving relationships with other people, because the relationship that you have with yourself, for most people, is highly conditional. Oh, I'm performing well. Well done, me. Now I allow myself to feel good. But I only allow that for 2.5 seconds, because if I feel too good about myself, I'll get lazy and then I stop driving forward with momentum. So not too long, right? So you see, that happens in relationships all the time. But if you can create an unconditional, loving relationship with yourself, where you love yourself regardless of your achievements, guess what? You get to be the one that always fills up your tank. And in that way, you become unstoppable, because nobody or nothing can stop you, because you now become the source of what's driving you forward in life. And the moment that happens, you stop looking at your partner to make you feel a certain way. You then approach this relationship from a place of, I'm already complete, I'm already happy, and we can be sharing our collective happiness together. So now it's an unconditional relationship, which transforms your entire life. And that is where it starts. It starts with, how are you talking to yourself? I remember a client of mine, and I'll tell you how this looks like in business. A client of mine, he came to me and he was pretty much stuck in his business. He wanted to grow into multiple six figures, and he knew that he needed to take certain more riskier actions, investing in certain programs, in having a sales team on board that takes care of his company, and he wouldn't do it. And I was like, why not? And he's like, I don't know. It's terrible. Every time I try, I get so scared and that I don't do it, and then I punish myself for it. I tell myself that I'm useless and all this. And I was like, okay. So what I helped him see was that the judgment that he has for himself is actually re-traumatizing him. So now he is approaching an area of unknown, of uncertainty, with an already triggered system, meaning he's already scared to do something, and now he's going to take an action that requires a lot of courage, and he can't take it because he's scaring himself so much. So then he punishes himself for not taking it. And what I did with him, I guided him through a session where I helped him forgive himself for what happened in his past, where the judgment was born. Mm-hmm. And guess what? One day later, he calls me and he's like, dude, you will not believe this. After our session, I approached it and I made the investment, and it's done. Boom. 2 weeks later, he said, dude, my revenue is skyrocketing. I'm feeling better than ever before. I'm constantly giving myself love and appreciation, and I'm performing at levels that I have never experienced. I was like, remove the self-judgment and you are free to access your true potential.
Oh, that is beautiful.
It's halftime here at the Play Your Position podcast, and we've got ourselves a great game. While you're up grabbing another snack and topping off your favorite beverage, make sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss another play. PYP is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever great podcasts can be found. Now, let's get back to the game.
Oh my gosh, it is so much about what we say to ourselves, and these shoulds, these
yes.
That's like the evil word. Should. Oh, I should be working harder. Oh, I should be happier. All this stuff. And I think one of the things that makes you different in this space, Mario, really is that you come with a worldview. You've lived in different cultures. You've experienced the United States as a resident. You've lived here, but you are not from here. So you have a perspective on American ethos. You were alluding to it earlier that a lot of, billions of people in the world look to America still as the place to get to, that this still is the land of opportunity, despite the fact that technology has opened up the world and there are many Americans who are now looking to leave America and go live elsewhere because it's gotten chaotic. And people say, I don't recognize America anymore. It's not the America and that in and of itself can become a block. It can also become a catalyst to freedom, as everything can. So as far as leadership goes, do you think, from your experience as a leader and also working with as many leaders as you have, do you think that there is a universal definition of leadership? If so, what might that sound like? And if not, what are the nuances that are the variables that would impact, leadership being defined one way here versus another place?
That's a great question. So you're right. That perspective that I got, but from living all over the world and experiencing different cultures, has shaped me enormously. And I think the definition of a leader is really changing. And to me, I make a distinction between two types of leaders. One is an unconscious leader, which is the type of leader that you so often see in the media landscape in countries all over the world. Those are, take Trump, right? I don't really have an opinion on him being good, bad, whatever. Like I respect the man for what he's done. He's also done a lot of things that I don't agree with, right? But if you look at him and if you look at his behavior, right? His behavior is extremely attention seeking. And it's a level of extremeness that you haven't seen anywhere before. Where does it come from? Well, if you know the man a little bit, you know that he's had an extremely difficult relationship with his father. So you would then also understand that because he didn't get the love and attention as a child, he built a coping mechanism around this where now he is screaming for attention so that he can feel loved. And so that to me is an unconscious leader. An unconscious leader is somebody that isn't aware over why he's doing what he's doing and isn't introspective and isn't able to really take a look at him or herself and say, you know what? Yeah, I did this or I said this because I was scared in that moment. And I think we are at a time in our history where humanity is fed up. Humanity is no longer into buying the BS lies from so-called leaders, where you're just being lied to again and again and again and again, whether it's left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. It's just like such a cliche. And so now people, they will no longer respect you. And so now there's a new type of leader that is being born, and that is a conscious leader. A conscious leader is someone who is in tune with their thoughts and feelings. That is someone that is operating from a place of love, from a place of service, from a place of peace, right? With an intention to create lasting solutions, not just quick fixes. A conscious leader is somebody who is continuously investing in uncovering their own shadow side because he or she knows that it has a tremendous effect on the way that he or she leads. And so I don't really have the definition, but for me, leaders are conscious leaders. And it's not so much about their achievements. Achievements are important and healthy. However, I feel there has been an over-reliance on achievements. Like, oh, look, the guy made $10 billion. That's why we should trust him. It's like, really? Is that all we look at? These are all the metrics? And so I think it's shifting towards authenticity, towards vulnerability, towards a greater collective mission that brings together people from all aspects of life, and somebody that has the courage to speak truth. And, now we live in a world where truth triggers people, and I get it because their ego is screaming out. But I think
Yes.
it's really about aligning yourself with truth, with the ultimate truth, and being a service of that ultimate truth.
Oh, you know what? I think that explanation between conscious and unconscious leaders is probably the best I've ever heard. And not that a lot of people sit around talking about those two poles, but you nailed it, Mario. Thank you. Really well said. And I mean, my mind is now going, and yeah, I look at leadership in the world, especially on the political realm, because that's, what we often affiliate leadership with, as we think of world leaders or we think of corporate leaders. And it does come down to self-awareness. The difference, it's like you can be a leader and be unconscious about it and still achieve. And I like to think that we are moving in the direction of conscious leadership, that we have to. Our planet really depends on. I mean, if we want our planet to survive, more of us need to become more conscious, right? You're on that path. I'm on that path. My listeners are on that path. Certainly, that we invest in ourselves to learn and grow. We, tune in to podcasts like this one to gain a new insight or think about our own decisions slightly differently. Get some of the tools, right? Get some of the tools. Speaking of tools, what's one of your favorite tools that you use with entrepreneurs and clients in general to help them make some breakthroughs? I mean, certainly you've walked us through a couple of the becoming aware of the self-talk, and then also identifying clearly what is it that you really want. Do you use any, I call them like tools in a box, things like personality assessments or things of that nature, or is everything things that you've created based on your own experiences?
So there are a few things, right? Two things that I would love to share. One is a tool that I haven't created exactly in the same way. I've given it my own twist. And, I always like to break things down. And I go from, okay, what is the result that I want? Say I want to grow my business to multiple 6 figures or 7 figures. So then I go, okay, what does that mean revenue wise? Okay, great. So what does that mean? How many service packages of what I'm offering do I have to sell on a monthly basis? Oh, God. All right. So I break it all down. Then I get to the daily actions that I need to take. Then it's a matter of, okay, dead simple, right? Just follow the plan. Now, if it was easy, though, everybody would do it. But the nature of the reality is we're not all doing it. So then I ask myself, what is it that I need? Okay, what I need to be focused and consistent. It's like those are the 2 key elements to get me to my outcome. Okay, now there's one law, which is called the law of open cycles. If you look at your computer browser, right, and I want all the listeners to do that. And you as well, Mary Lou, if you don't mind me joining on this one. If you look
I'm right with you, right here.
Good. How many tabs do you have open on your computer browser?
I have 12 tabs open.
Okay. That's on average, I would say lower. I often hear people give me way higher numbers.
Really?
But still on the higher side. So here's why I say this. If you look at your computer browser, the more tabs you have open, the less computing power you have available for individual tasks. At some point, you hear music playing and you have no idea where it's coming from. You have 4 tabs that are not moving and you're just clicking. Nothing's happening. And then you get da-dum, error message and the whole thing shuts down. And you're like, oh boy, I need to clean this up. Right? That's how your mind works. If the more open tabs you have in your mind, the more open cycles you have in your mind, the more scattered you are, the more tired you are, the more reactive you are, the less focused and more distracted you are. So an open cycle, there are multiple ways to look at that. Let's take tasks, right? If you are somebody that considers him or herself to be a leader, a nurturer, a giver, a caretaker, somebody who's of service, there's a high chance that you have said yes to things that you should be saying no to. A friend might be coming and say, hey, Mary Lou, you have this podcast. I want to start a podcast. Maybe I see this so amazing. Can we sit down and help? and you want to be kind, and you're like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Let's set us up sometime. I'll reach out. And then you put it on your list, and it's on the bottom of the 10 items you have there. And then you're like, okay, I'll do it later. And then you don't do it. And then tomorrow, and you don't do it. And it sits there. And you see it in the corner of your eye, and you're like, God damn it, I still need that. And it's likely you don't do this only once, but you may say to your spouse, yeah, I'll take care of this, right? I'll send it out. I'll send out the mail, or I'll make the phone call, and you don't do it, and you push it. And you do this thing, and these things start to accumulate, and they sit in the back of your mind. So now you have said yes to things, the tasks that you shouldn't have said yes to. So you want to close those. You want to take inventory. What have I said yes to that, if I'm really honest, I should be saying no to? You take inventory, you close those open cycles. Another way of looking at it is also in terms of your feelings. Every time you're in relationships in your life, you feel the way you feel. Say you feel triggered, and you feel really upset or angry about something that somebody said or didn't say or did or didn't do. And then what do you do? You're like, I feel this way. Whatever, it's not worth it. I'm so busy. I got so many things to do. I don't want to do this now, or whatever. He didn't mean it. And you just disregard it and you push it to the side. Now that creates an open cycle. And you do this with 10 or 20 people, and all of a sudden in the back of your mind, you have 10 to 20 open cycles, and your mind is constantly dealing with them. And you're trying to sit on your computer for 1 hour to stay focused. And you're like, come on, this is so simple. Anybody can do this. After 5 minutes, you're completely somewhere else. And so you're not going to get stuff done. So the law of open cycles is a very practical way of approaching this and of regaining your focus, your clarity, and your peace of mind. What goes hand in hand with that is conscious breathing. Conscious breathing, people might say, oh, duh, breathing, I do it all the time. Well, conscious breathing means you're actually conscious of the fact that you're breathing. It's not automatic. So you take deep belly breaths. I promise you, you do this for 1, 2, 3 minutes where you just sit down, you close your eyes, and you breathe in and out through the nose, and you breathe into the belly. Within 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to feel significantly better. Like I can already tell you, Mary Lou, there's going to be listeners right now that are taking deeper breaths.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. And when you do that, your fight or flight system can slow down. It becomes deactivated. And you then have a more relaxed, more centered, more calm way of showing up. And guess what? You do this more consistently, you're going to save so much time, money, and energy. So bring those two tools together: law of open cycles and breath work. I did this with one of my previous clients. He's an agency owner of a cold email company. When he came to me in the 3rd week of working together, we did this. His business went 600% growth. And he's like, dude, I cannot believe what is happening. Like, what did you do with me? And I'm like, well, very simple things, right? But you haven't been doing this stuff. So that's what I would say to everybody who's listening now.
Oh, fantastic. The simple things are often we're so quick to dismiss them because they're like, really? That? breathing consciously. I'll add, I remember years ago, I met a presenter at a conference, one of these, and he had written a book about, it was about taking control of your health. And one of the tips that he shared about had to do with conscious breathing as well. But his angle, which I thought was fascinating, and I've never forgotten it, is that you can actually change the pH of your body through deep breaths. So if you're in a high acidity causes inflammation, and inflammation is the root cause of all illness. Because if you think about all the itises that people are, the words like arthritis, if you see itis at the end of a word, it means you're inflamed. And, whatever the other part of the word is. So arthritis is inflammation of the joints, right? So anyway, without going down that rabbit hole, I love that you brought up the power of deep breathing consciously to reset your whole just state. It puts you in a completely different state, which then can lead to clarity, which then if you're in a clear state, maybe you could identify specifically what it is you really want to kind of tie this all together. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that you've been saying, because, you've done several different things in your life, Mario, and you told me in the pre-chat that what you're doing now truly is your calling. And I would like, as we wind things down today, I would like you to speak about the experience that you had in arriving at what you now know is your calling. For people who are listening who might not be there yet, maybe they have an inkling, maybe they've had a spark of an idea, but they do what you just said, which is put it off, and it's in part of those tabs. It's a tab for another day. What advice do you have for people who might be right on that precipice of saying, I'm ready to pursue my calling?
I think once you feel that call, once you have that notion of I'm ready, you want to have clarity, right? You want to have clarity over what is it and what does it look like. Now, when I say that, you don't need sort of end result clarity. You just need to know the next step. The next step for you might be to quit your job. The next step for you might be to buy the book. The next step might be for you to book the seminar. Like, it's just one step. But most people, because they don't see all the way through, they don't even take that step. And as you do that, my invitation always is to remain open, because you don't know where the road will lead you, because the road is just being created as you walk. So be open. Be open for unexpected things to happen, and look at everything that happens from a place of this is exactly what should happen. Why? Because it's happening. That's the only evidence we have. And if you believe in a higher power, I refer to it as God, and something happens in your life and you say it's not supposed to happen, you are also saying, I am smarter than God. I know better than God. Ooh. So, or I know better than the universe, life, spirit, source, whatever is your magic. You need to become aware of that the path that you're on, the experiences that you're having are exactly what's supposed to happen. Because in every single moment, there's a lesson to be learned. And if you learn the lessons and if you embrace the lessons, guess what? The next step will open, and the next step will open, and the next step will open. Like Mary Lou, when I only knew that one day I want to become a coach and a speaker. I had no idea about how coaching works. I was a German Italian native speaker. Like, I didn't really speak English the way that I speak English now. I had to build this persona. And so I wasn't there. I started by sharing in front of my university class where there were 5 people. I talked about my journey with mindset and what it did for me. And, people were like, oh, cool. I did so many free speeches, workshops with universities all over the place. Like, I've blanked out, didn't know what to say. I've said things that were afterwards. I was like, oh God, did you really just do that? Like, I remember one of my first speeches at Toastmasters. I was a member at Toastmasters, which I highly recommend everybody check out. It's a public speaking club all over the world. I did a story where I wanted to surprise the audience. That the key takeaway was that I was talking about a client of mine that I was working with, and his name was Egon. And so I wanted to make the audience think that I was working with a client who was actually my own ego. And so it was so stupidly obvious, where at the end, I would tear off the letter N from the word Egon, so E-G-O-N. And so what I was really doing was working on my own ego. And I was expecting people to go, oh my God, wow. And people just look, blank stares. And I just hear the, and I was like, okay, you blew this one. Oh, wow. Right. So I did lots of this stuff, and many things didn't work out, and I didn't really know where it would take me. But I would hold on to this idea that one day I too would become a coach and a speaker. And, I never gave up on that. And what I will say is, when you have a calling, make sure that you can feel this calling in every ounce of your being, every fiber of your body. You have to feel it. And the way you do it is you go into workshops, you go into environments where you have to physically push yourself to a certain limit, where your conscious thinking mind is removed out of the way, where your body can release all of the emotions that it's holding on to, where it really sinks deep. And you said, I went to Unleash the Power Within in London with Tony Robbins. And that's what I mean. Those experiences, it became real. It became part of my DNA. I started meeting other people that were just as crazy as I was. And so we hyped each other up, and we made the unnormal thing become the normal thing. And so all of that led me to living more in my calling. And today I live there, but there's still areas of mine where I'm not fully embodying what I'm doing in this world. And, that's great. There's more room to grow. There's more room to learn and to experience. And so that's what I would really say. If you do that, I think it will take you very far.
Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. Now you have a special gift for listeners, Mario. So why don't you share with us that, and also where you hang out online?
Yes. So if you go to my website, that's my full name, Mario Lanzarotti. It's MarioLanzarotti.com/welcome -PYP. If you go on that URL, you will find there is my TEDx talk, which has now crossed 1 million views.
Congrats on that. Wow.
Thank you. There's also a free training, a 30-minute training on how to make more money in half the time, where I talk about some of the principles that we looked at today. And if you want, there are links on how to connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter. And you can also connect with me directly if you want to explore what coaching would look like if you and I were to work together.
Oh, fantastic. So team, you can go right to those links. So there will also be a link to this on Mario's show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And definitely check out his TEDx talk, his TED talk. I mean, this has just been such an amazing conversation today. It's exactly the kind of conversations that more of us need to be having regularly, because it really, it's you don't just arrive. It is a constant immersing of yourself into, and if you can't get to a workshop or convention or get away for the weekend because of other obligations right now, you can at least take this hour and listen to what you've just done, team. You've just taken us, Mario has taken us through an amazing journey today. And I'd love for you to leave us with a couple of books, Mario, that have been instrumental to your growth as a leader, ones that maybe you've read recently, or you might have a couple of favorites that you turn to over and over again.
Yes. Great question. So I would say a wonderful book for perspective. If you're ever feeling down, or you're doubting yourself, or you're lacking a sense of gratitude or appreciation, read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That's one. If you truly want to understand the nature of accessing high states of flow, which I consider the highest states of performance, read the book The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, because he really teaches you how to live in the present moment, where you are the most powerful that you can possibly be. And then I would say a book that is very practical in the application of becoming a high-powered, high-integrity person is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think those 3 books have really impacted me greatly, and they are part of my staple reading choice.
Wonderful. So, team, I'll have links to all 3 of those books: Man's Search for Meaning, The Power of Now, and The 4 Agreements. Also available on Mario's show notes page at pyppodcast.com. And Mario, this has been so just rewarding, and my heart is full, my soul is full. What would you like to leave listeners with?
Thank you for that. What I would like to to leave you with is that consider this idea that you already have it all. Just think on that you have everything that you could possibly need in your life. If that was true, how would you feel? And what would become possible for you right now?
Hey team, Mary Lou here. Who's number one in football changes from year to year. Fashion trends come and go, same with musical tastes. But leadership skills, they never go out of style. In fact, these days, leadership is an essential survival skill for a world that demands more from us than ever before. To succeed these days, you need to know how to show up for yourself so that you can then do the work you love with people you like the way you want. The Play Your Position Leadership Playbook helps you do this, and it's free. Go to pyppodcast.com to download your copy today. If being more successful this year, next year, in the 21st century is on your to-do list, get your copy of the Play Your Position Leadership Playbook now. pyppodcast.com. It's at the top of the page. You can't miss it. That's pyppodcast.com, and start being more of the leader you are meant to be today. This podcast was produced by Daniel Romeros. Show notes for this episode can be found over at pyppodcast.com. I'm Mary Lou Kaiser. Thanks for listening.
Here at the Play Your Position podcast, we believe that the road to self-mastery and a life well lived starts with answering the call to leadership. That's when the fun really begins. Send this episode to any friends who might need to hear the inspiration and ideas you heard today. And feel free to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform.